important that we started today's speeches off with the youth and we're ending it with the youth. That said, please forgive me if I'm not as sharp or analytical as the comrades who preceded me. So, the Occupy movement. I had almost forgotten how inspirational all of those images were because I've been so submerged in being at the encampment for so many hours that it was really inspiring to have that little clip together. A lot of people have talked about how Wisconsin was a big push for this Occupy movement, but at Wisconsin I saw people carrying signs that said, "Fight like an Egyptian." So we know where that inspiration really came from. If we want to talk about some of the tinder that was lying on the ground that might have caused the rapid spread of this fire, of this occupation, we would obviously have to address the rampant poverty across the world, the increasing first world unemployment, the housing bubble imposed on us by casino capitalism, the debt bubble, which is consuming the GDP of even our most prestigious industrial nations. And this is really just unrestrained global capitalism working itself to its logical ends. We've internationally been able to watch through social media the Arab Spring, the Indignados, the Greek people occupying, the British riots we watched internationally, and we held our breath because we understood the anger. We understood the pain that led to those events and the explosive setting that caused them to turn into such violent action. So in the US as well as in Britain, we have falling union memberships, shattered pensions, falling access to quality education at both the primary and higher levels. And people honestly feel totally unrepresented by their governments, which is reflected in the terrible turnout rates of most major elections. So what do we have now that we have these occupations? We have an occupation on which the sun never sets. It goes from New York City to San Francisco, Phoenix, Arizona to Boston, Massachusetts, Bradenton, Florida to Kalamazoo, Michigan. You said that they weren't in Antarctica. I don't know if you spend as much time on Facebook as I do, but I saw people in parkas with Antarctica supporters Occupy Wall Street. As well as tens of thousands of people occupying around the world, we have boundless public support, which is being seen in funding for tents, food, bail money. We've even had people who provided money for us to run our own papers so we could represent ourselves because the corporate media was not doing a satisfactory job. We have also maintained camps despite police brutality. Socialist Alternative specifically participated in the re-encampment in Seattle. After a brutal eviction, they rallied for a night of 500 tents, and they succeeded, and they reoccupied the space. Through this movement, we are planting the seeds of class consciousness. Inherent in this slogan, "We are the 99%, is this reality that 1% of the United States controls 46% of the wealth. So we are truly understanding that the 99%'s interests stand in direct opposition to the people whose only ideal is profit. Earlier tonight, I did a workshop on the Occupy movement. I spoke to a pretty full room, and we made an analysis of our inspirations and frustrations related to our own collective interventions in the occupations. It is important as revolutionary socialists that we interact with these explosive movements. The discourses, for me, teased out some of the international perspectives. Comrades were concerned about ensuring overt anti-capitalism in the movement, how to protect and manage funds donated to the occupation, how to make sure that there wasn't friction between the unions and the occupiers. We did see in Oakland a successful general strike where they shut down the ports, and professors from all of the local state universities participated in the general strike. So as we march through the streets of Boston and New York, San Francisco, there are thousands of occupiers throughout just the United States chanting in the streets, shutting down the streets, "We are the 99%, we are aligning our class consciousness." And I had a quote that I wanted to read. History as a whole and the history of revolutions in particular, is always richer in content, more varied, more multiform, more lively and ingenious than is imagined by even the best parties. Whereas at moments, a great upsurge and the exertion of all human capacities, revolutions are made by the class consciousness, will, passion, and imagination of tens of millions. My full-timer gave me a book of Lenin to read on the plane. And the specific manifestations of this protest movement have been zombie marches. In Boston, we managed to shut down the Fed for an entire night. There were tweets from inside the building, "Help, I'm stuck inside," because there were undead protesters laying in front of the doors. We have this very just amazing occurrence of Obamavilles basically being powered by bicycle generators donated by MIT graduates. It's just a very odd situation. So let's talk about how CWI can intervene in these movements. Things that really need to be agitated out of this movement is a real party political structure. And through this party structure, we need to agitate for small victories that can motivate the movement further, proposing demands that housing is a right, or for instance in the United States we're doing our Jobs Not Cuts campaign that overtly says tax the rich, end the wars, fund jobs programs. These are simple demands that capitalism will not be able to sustain. And if we have a party structure within the Parliament of Britain or within Congress, we are able to demonstrate the failures of the two corporate parties. And the masses can watch as we make demands that capitalism cannot sustain. But the most important part, I think, that needs to come out of these parties is that they need to stress the internationalism. Just as this movement is an international movement, we're watching together, we need to speak together, and we need to make sure that the needs of workers internationally are being addressed. The major event that I really think that we would be able to endorse, and we're endorsing it in Boston, and I want it to be picked up internationally, much like the October 15th Day of Action, is the Poor People's March. We've had a number of marches that are for students, a number of marches that are for union workers. We've gotten up to 3,000 people showing up at these marches. But I think if we really built in the last week of March, a Poor People's March internationally, that we could shake the world with millions of boots on the ground. And I'd like to leave you with that and perhaps the idea that you could build that.